Good morning, everyone. My name is Warren Parr. I am the Senior Director of Ticket Sales for the Atlanta Falcons. And just first off, wanted to say thanks to you guys for allowing me an opportunity to talk a little bit about what I do for the Falcons and give you some insight on our different ticketing packages that we have available, along with what goes into how we price our tickets and some of the details into the background of that. So getting right into it, diving into a little bit about my background. Graduated from Georgia Southern University in 2003. I began my career in sports, actually in arena football in Austin, Texas with the Austin Wranglers arena football team. After a year and a half of working there, used my boss who had some contacts here with the Falcons and started with the Falcons in 2005. Since 2005, my whole career with the Falcons has been in a sales capacity, starting off selling tickets and then managing a seasonal staff, managing a full-time staff, and then now to the position that I am now as director, where primarily my responsibility is just overseeing all the revenue management, inventory management, and just making sure we're providing our staff with the tools and resources they need to be successful. So diving into our products, our primary driver for revenue is season tickets, and that's really kind of the case with all NFL teams. A little bit different than some MLB or NBA or hockey teams where their season ticket base might be a little bit smaller, and they make up some of their revenues by selling group tickets and single game tickets. For us, about 95% of our ticket sales revenue comes from season ticket sales. The season ticket products that we offer are just our 10-game season ticket plan. We have club seating as well, which is our most priciest seats, which for us are between the 20-yard lines on the lower level and then between the 30-yard lines on the 200 level. And then we also have a higher end product that would be called an annual suite. Some of you guys might be familiar with what an annual suite product looks like. It's basically for us either a 16 or 20 person private space that has access to your own private restrooms. You can order your own catering in those suites. It's primarily used by companies and high net worth individuals that have kind of a capacity to entertain their families and something like that. And then we also have a product that's kind of new called a Loge box, which is basically like a mini suite. Holds anywhere from 4 to 6 people, and those we have 28 Loge boxes as well. In terms of just a quick overview on pricing, season ticket prices range anywhere from, on the low end, $550, and on the high end, $3,800 per seat for the whole season. If you're looking at a suite, an annual suite, our average annual suite costs around $200,000 for the season, with some of them costing as much as $400,000 annually. So pretty big difference between the cost of a season ticket versus the cost of a suite. Now you might ask, what are some of the variables that go into pricing our season tickets? And it's a great question. And surprisingly, it's not all based on team performance. Obviously, team performance plays a role in that discussion, but a lot of it is based on market trends and what our secondary tickets are selling for on sites like StubHub and SeatGeek and the Ticket Exchange. A lot of it depends on the actual teams that we play next year. And so, as you all may know, with the 32 teams in the NFL, not every team is as popular as the next team. So, for example, the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Eagles, the Bears, the Packers. There's some blue blood NFL teams that have been around forever that have a really, really strong fan following. And typically the prices for those games are higher than, say, for a game against like the Arizona Cardinals or the Jacksonville Jaguars or a team like that. Every so often you might get a team like this year. The Baltimore Ravens are kind of that sexy hot team with Lamar Jackson. Historically, that might not have been a game that we would hike up the prices for, but with the popularity of him and with that team being good, if they were to be on our schedule next year, that would have been a team or a game that we would have increased that pricing. So those are two main factors. I think this year, one new resource that we've been utilizing is an analytics company called Recentive Analytics. And what they do is they not only are able to really kind of dive into the individuals that have tickets for us now, our current season ticket holders, to understand those individuals' likelihood to renew their seats based off of how many games they came to last year, based off of how often they sold their tickets, based off of how often they forwarded their tickets. What's unique about this analytics company is they also are bringing in a lot of different variables and data points through social scraping. And so through social scraping, they're really getting a good feel for an individual's sentiment of the team. You know, for example, am I negatively posting, bad comments about the team, which might affect my ability to renew? So basically, they're aggregating all the information through social scraping on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter. Anything that they can use as a data point to basically create a scoring model for our season ticket members to help us understand their likelihood to renew their seats. We also do a similar exercise to help us identify prospects in the market that might look like one of our season ticket holders but don't necessarily have season tickets yet. And so kind of based on those analytics and what that data is telling us, depending on what our pricing is, we can get a good sense of who is going to renew their seats and what we can expect to sell to new buyers for next year. So obviously there is kind of a fine line between, if we go too high, we might lose more people than if we were to scale back a little bit and make sure we're at a comfortable spot to where whatever we think we might lose, that we know that we're able to replace. One of the questions that Dr. Wakefield had asked was, something that's very popular in sports now that wasn't necessarily the case back, a handful of years ago, was the idea of dynamically and variably pricing your tickets. And what that means, variably pricing your tickets essentially means if we have a season ticket that's $1,000 and we have 10 games that are in that season ticket plan, the old school approach was you just price every game at $100, okay? $100 times 10 games, and that's where you get your $1,000. Variably pricing your tickets means that depending on the game, depending on the opponent, depending on the time of the year, you might price games differently based on some of those variables. And so in that same example that I gave you, that 10-game package might still cost $1,000. It's just maybe half the season's priced at $150 per game, and the other half of the season's priced at $50 a game. So the games aren't evenly priced throughout the season. Now, for us, we typically, if we're going to variably price our games, we typically have 4 different tiers. We might price one game at $200, one threshold at $150, one threshold at $100, one threshold at $50, and then we just tinker around them as long as the end value of those 10 games equals $1,000. That's what we're striving for. When we talk about dynamically pricing seats, dynamically pricing takes place more as it relates to selling single game tickets and through group sales. And basically what dynamically pricing means is I might, when the schedule comes out, start off by pricing a game at $100, okay? Let's say, for example, going back to our example of the Baltimore Ravens, let's say that team gets hot, they have a player that gets hot, maybe the Falcons are hot. We might decide to increase the value of that ticket from $100 to maybe $120, maybe $150. That price is dynamic based on the supply and the demand of that ticket, and it's always fluid. And that's one of the rules that the NFL changed a few years back, is they gave us finally the ability to dynamically price our seats to be closer in line with what the secondary markets are selling those seats for, because all the secondary markets are basically dynamically pricing their tickets. It's very similar to the airline business. If you go to Travelocity or Southwest or Delta, flights are constantly, the prices of flights are constantly changing based on supply and demand, typically increasing in price and not necessarily decreasing in price. The last thing that we would want to do is sell a bunch of tickets at $150 and then decrease the price to $130 or $120. Well, now you've just really kind of agitated a bunch of people that purchased early, which is a habit that you want them to develop, but then you've in essence penalized them for purchasing early. So that's a little bit of the differences between variably pricing your tickets and dynamically pricing your tickets. One of the, I guess, discussion questions that I thought that I would throw out to you guys is going back to pricing. We had mentioned that typically from a season ticket perspective, we do variably price our season tickets based on home opponents and the popularity of those teams. What I thought would be a good project for the group would be to essentially rank the 32 NFL teams from top to bottom, highest price to lowest price, in terms of what opponents would drive the highest price point for a ticket, assuming all the other variables were equal. So let's just assume that we're playing an opponent in October on a Sunday afternoon. Right now, what you know about all of those teams, I'd like to have you guys rank the 32 teams from high to low in terms of the teams that would command the most value for their ticket. And we don't necessarily have to assign a value to that ticket. I'm just more curious for you guys to do the exercise of ranking the teams that would be the most popular to the least popular. So that'll wrap it up for this morning. Again, appreciate you guys. You can reach out to me anytime. My email address is last name Parr, Parr, @falcons.nfl.com. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn as well if you'd like to network with me on LinkedIn. But that's a wrap. Thanks a lot, and we'll keep in touch.